good morning to your team.
It's been quite a while. I hope you have been well.
Well, I'm good, though. It's been a long while.
Yes.
I think I would want to apologize. We've been on the ground working so hard, so
okay.
We've been a little bit out of touch. But all this well.
Well, I just want to take your views on this. You are, in fact, you do a lot of work in rice production, and I'm wondering. This is IFS, Institute for Fiscal Studies. They are of the opinion that we could increase our current capacity to produce rice by 2,600%. Do we have that capacity in Ghana?
Yes. I mean, capacity-wise, yes, we can be able to do that. But then I think they also work with some very high estimates, comparing it to countries like Vietnam and the rest. So capacity-wise, yes, we can.
So then, so currently, do we have an idea how well we are doing in terms of rice production?
Yeah, currently when it comes to rice production, we are not doing well at all. There have been some intervention by subsequent governments to help in increasing local production. But currently, we only produce as much as barely 50% of what our consumption rate is, or in terms of our total consumption in Ghana on a year-to-year basis. So we still import quite a lot into the country.
We're doing, are you saying barely or less than 50%?
Less than 50% in terms of the total consumption. It's estimated that our consumption is about 1.2 million metric tons. But then what we produce in Ghana is just about 700 metric tons. And that's even for all milled rice. So, I mean, with the estimation of IFS, they have estimated that Ghana current paddy rice production is 1.28 million tons. But the emphasis is on paddy rice. But for rice, when you have paddy, you now have to mill the paddy. Now, when you have a very good paddy, that is the rice in its husk, and you mill, the best case scenario, you'll get 70% of it being the milled rice. The rest is chaff and bran. Now, this 70%, that's the milled rice. Some will be broken and some will be long grain. So you barely have about 50% of it being long grain. Now, looking at the taste of Ghanaians, that means if we are even able to produce 1.28 million metric ton of paddy rice, we will just have about 640,000 metric ton. That will be long grain rice that will be consuming. So the estimate of 1.28 is not what we actually consume as a country, but what we consume is just under 700,000 metric tons. But in the total consumption of Ghana is between 1.2 1.4 million metric ton of milled rice. That means we are still below, we are just about 50% of what we consume as a country. The rest is imported from other countries like Vietnam, India, Pakistan, and the like.
You talked about, did I hear you say the taste of the Ghanaian? Explain that.
The preference. We don't, for the past decade, the Ghanaian palate has grown to like, the aromatic rice, which many call perfumed rice. We now also want long grain. So we want it slender, long. I'm sure Nancy in your studio would mention that that's what they use for the fried rice and the rest. And that's become the preference of Ghanaian consumers. So these then mean that if you mill the rice and you have some being broken, now the broken has not been relegated to being used for omutuo and the rest. Then the long grain will be used for the long grain rice, the fried rice, the jollof, and the like, which is not the same when you go to other African countries. So the demand is actually for the long grain, and there's very low demand for the broken. As such, you will mill the rice, so you have 100% rice, When you mill, you have 100 rice. When you mill, 70 of it will be the milled rice. 30 is chaff and bran. Out of the 70, you get about 50 of it, which will be long grain. The rest will be broken. So what you can actually sell for premium value will be the long grain. The broken will be sold less premium. That will be used for omutu and the rest.
But you said the situation is not the same in other African countries.
Yes. Yes.
Give us an example.
So when you go to Nigeria or you go to Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, rice is rice. So they have theirs called in a mixed grades. So they are mixed grades where the long grain, the broken are all consumed. Technically, rice, when it gets into your mouth, you munch it. You chew it, you break it before you swallow. So other African countries don't really mind if it is long grain or not long grain. But in Ghanaian, our palate or our preference usually goes for the long grain, slender, long. I mean, for the specification of the food we're actually consuming, which is a mindset that we need to break. It used not to be so, but then I think for the past decade, this preference has developed over time.
So for those of you who produce rice, you know that if you want to get maximum value, you need the long grain aromatic rice.
That's it.
That's the quality you need to get.
That's it.
Where usually do you take the broken rice to? Who are the ones who usually buy the broken rice?
Those usually go to either those who are doing the further processing, like those who want to do Tom Brown and other baby foods. Those who might, maybe homes and domestic homes might want to use it for omutu and the rest. But then the premium, what the market will prefer and pay for is the long grain and aromatic.
Is there a history to this particular? Is it an acquired taste? How did it happen?
Yeah. It's actually an acquired taste. I think for the past decade or two, not that I want to make a comparison to any other brand, but then there was the influx of a lot of rice into the country where very, very good names. I mean, the focus was on perfumed. So perfumed rice and the long grain. And that became a marketing thing. So I think it got well marketed. It's also worth to note that our Ghanaian dishes hadn't been fully rice focused. But then for the past 10, 15 years, we realized that the Ghanaian consumption, when it comes to the per capita consumption of rice, has actually increased dramatically or drastically. And it's all because now our preference is now shifting towards rice. And that is where we have one of our issues because our Ghanaian agricultural productivity, when it comes to increment in land use of rice production or cultivation, it actually is just about under 2%. So year on year, what we add on is a range, but on the average, about 2%. But when it comes to our preference in terms of the per capita, when it comes to rice consumption, it's actually quite astronomical. And currently, the per capita rice has almost doubled for the past 10 years. So that means our rate at which we are preferring rice is way higher than the rate at which we are producing rice. So we used to, by 2012, the rice per capita consumption is about 24 kilos. But currently, it's over 70 kilos now. That means we are consuming, our appetite to consume or the consumption we are having in Ghana is at a way faster rate than we can produce. And that brings the opportunity of that gap, the gap where there is a need for us to import to be able to augment the consumption of rice in the country. So it's been a marketing thing, and I think unfortunately we have acquired it, and we have to deal with it, basically.
So those adverts that used to shout perfumed long grain rice.
Yes.
I've all built up in the minds of the Ghanaian, and I've informed the type of rice the Ghanaian wants to eat.
That's it.
I see.
That's it.
Does it make it difficult for the average Ghanaian farmer to make the maximum, the Ghanaian rice farmer to make the maximum out of the products they cultivate? This kind of preference.
Yes. So now the preference now falls into question that for us to be able to produce enough of such rice with such qualities, then seed is critical. Because now, although IFS was mentioning we have to do production, but it needs to be well structured. We need to start with the seed production. If we don't have the seed, we can't farm. And if you need a seed, you need a seed of certain varieties, which we have some in the country. We have Agra, we have X-Biker, we have Jasmine 85. We have some few ones which have the same qualities as the market wants. However, we need those seeds in huge quantities to be able to feed the production arm. So it means that we also have to then improve the varieties over time, because now we are able to produce local rice which is perfumed or is aromatic, and it is long grain. But currently from India there is this basmati which is a little bit more slender and longer, which is now becoming more of a preference for the elites in the country. So if you want to, if your market niche is the elites, then that means researchers have now start looking at varieties where we can be able to have them which will be a little bit more slender and longer to be able to meet that market. So all these things come into play. Not that it's not possible for us as a country to be able to produce these seed varieties and be able to farm it. But then the thing is, our action is slow. So it then has led into we having a gap, and that gap has to be, substituted with imports. And then that's the issue we have as a country now.
I see. So just when you are getting a handle on the competition with perfume rice, now you have to compete with basmati.
That's it.
I see. Initially, one of the biggest challenges that local rice farmers used to raise was that you cultivate the rice, most Ghanaians don't want to touch it. Has that changed significantly?
Yes, it has changed significantly. It used to be from the angle that we have some of the rice which comes onto the market and there are stones in it and they are not uniform in color. Now, based on machine usage, the fact that we now have been able to import, we have brought to the country state-of-the-art machines, all these are no more issues. Even the most basic machines can be able to stone and be able to clean and take out all the chaff. So very advanced machines like what my company, Agribusiness, do have, we can be able to produce rice which has uniform color. So all the colors which are not uniform, the machine takes those ones out. So that one is not currently an issue anymore. I think the issue currently we are facing as a country is the fact that within a year, in some years, there will be a big demand for locally produced rice. Then there will not be enough production to be able to meet it. Then there are years where there will be enough production, but the demand has gone down. And as you understand, basic marketing tells you that many things goes into consumer preference. And one of the biggest is price. So taking a critical look at this year, where we are all happy that the currency has, been stronger than other, foreign currencies. But then the unfortunate thing is, it makes the imported rice cheaper. For we who did the production, we imported our products last year, our fertilizer, chemicals last year. Now the farmers had planned to be able to farm their rice. For every kilo, when it comes to costs, the cost to a farmer for a kilo of paddy in the situation where he gets very good yield It's averaging around 3.5 to 4 cedi per kilo. Now, when the farmer is done farming, the farmer expects to sell the paddy at a price that he can be able to make some good margins on. But unfortunately, the currency, unfortunately, the currency has performed better. And now individuals who are importing rice into the country can sell at a way lower price. Currently, ABB sells at 450 Ghana cedis. But then there are some rice which might not be of the same quality, but it's been imported to the country, which is going for 300 Ghana cedis for 25 kilo. So you see that your efforts in doing production for some months, processing and getting the product into the country, creating jobs in the country now becomes an issue because someone just imports the rice to the country at a way lower price. So there's a need for government policy or governments or the state itself to be able to marry the currency and trying to hold farmers from they being, more like they getting broken-hearted for them not to do production the following season. All these things are things that we need to be able to marry, so that it becomes interesting to get more youth to go into farming because they know when they are able to farm and the produce comes. One rich man or a businessman will not go to Vietnam or Pakistan or India and import a cheaper one and come to the country. And because of price, Ghanaians will now shift towards buying the imported ones rather than the local ones.
Mm. And I was asking, I asked all these questions because I wanted to understand the current climate when it comes to rice production and consumption on the local market. Now, IFS is of the opinion that we can do 35 million tons of rice if we actually do a couple of things. First of all, do you agree Ghana can ramp up to 35 million tons of rice? And what do we need to do to get there, to produce 35 million tons of rice annually?
Yes. So in terms of doing a projection, on paper it is possible that Ghana can be able to ramp up to 35 million metric tons of paddy rice. That's the equivalent of about 2,600%. However, the situation we face as a country is where Ghana has about 5.9 million hectares of land suitable for rice, out of which 1.9 million hectares are within the irrigable areas or irrigable lands. But unfortunately, we are only utilizing just about 2.6% of it. So that means there is a need for a lot of investment that needs to go into we being able to develop those lands to enable us to be able to achieve the 35 million metric tons. Also, I think when I listened to their discussion and also read some few news items from what IFS had also requested. They were also asking for us to have a rice development board to coordinate the planning, the financing, and the implementation of these things across the value chain. Now, the the reason why I disagree on that portion is that Ghana as a country has not really been successful when it comes to government development boards or boards which are under the control of government when it comes to regulation of a certain crop. Because as the government changes, there could be new policies that will end up affecting it. So if there was a need for us to have a board of that sort, the main proposal is that that board needs to be semi-autonomous or autonomous, and it should be private-led. Now, when it comes to development of these lands, when we have also left development of these lands into the hands of government. There was a comparison made to Vietnam and other countries. It's worth noting that a country like Vietnam gave agricultural loans in single digits interest rates. Unfortunately, Ghana, we are still doing double digits, even with GESAL and DBG. If you're lucky, you get your credit in the 20s. But in those countries, interest are in single digits, sometimes as low as 3%. They also have concessionary loans for land development. So by concessionary loans, that means you are being given maybe some moratorium of maybe 3 years post in the development of your land for you to now start paying. We don't have such systems in Ghana. When the bank gives you the money, maximum in a year or two, the bank wants its money back. And these are all part of the difficulties that we are facing. So instead of setting up a rice development board, why won't the government set up a fund? Even if it's DBG, the money goes directly into development. It should be concessionary. It should be private led. Now, when a private man is tied to the repayment, you know government can be able to get the money back and give that money to someone else in future. But if we allow such resources to be managed by government for development, to be shared to farmers on what criteria we cannot tell, before we realize the money will have been expended, the development will not have been done well, or even if it's done well, the farmers who might end up having might not have the wherewithal for them to be able to continue production on land. So there's a need for us to, in as much as we need government intervention, it's my belief that there is a need for either a semi-autonomous body, which is private-led, to coordinate production, research, and financing, as well as marketing of rice in the country.
Well, then, anyway, let me conclude by reading a comment to you. I know you've highlighted some of the reasons why, like you were just talking about the cost of AVV as against the price of AVV as against some foreign counterparts. Amadu Tahir Asana, the truth about our local rice is that it's way expensive than the imported rice, sometimes twice the cost of the imported rice. Briefly explain to Amadu, I know you have, like I said, just for way of emphasis, why he has to pay more for rice produced in Ghana than rice that's imported all the way from Thailand.
Yes, so the answer is simple. For rice that's imported in Thailand, as I mentioned, they might have, or they do have the subventions. So governments have, their government have subsidized it for them. For those who have bought for finance, that cost of finance is like 3 or 4%. Ghana will go to production and you go to the bank. If you're lucky, you get your cost of finance in the 20s. If you go for a normal commercial loan, it's in the 30s. Now, you in Ghana, you have to add a cost of finance to your production cost. In the instances, they are producing to export. So India produces to export. Vietnam produces Thailand. They produce enough to export. So because they are exporting, there are some export benefits. Like in Ghana, when you're produced to export, you are under the Ghana Free Zones enclave law, and as such, you have some benefits. Unfortunately, we are producing to meet the local demand, and we don't have such benefits. Now, because of the disparity and the non-uniformity of cost of finance when it comes to local production, as against the one who is producing outside and exporting to our country, it makes our price a little bit higher. It's also worth noting that unlike the local ones where the rice is freshly harvested, freshly milled, and being ready for you on the market, elsewhere, the rice is produced, stored, and they use that preservative in storing. It is when their silos are getting full up, then they into the the FIFO, first in, first out. So one rice is like 10 years old is what they now export into other countries like ours for forex. Then they store their fresh for their own country and for their own consumption in their country. So there's a need for us to marry the two issues. It's worth noting that even if you are exporting something to those countries, you will pay higher duty because they want to discourage other countries bringing their rights into their own territory to distort the local markets. Unfortunately, in Ghana, if those people are well connected, they can be able to get tax rebates, or they can be able to get exemptions on their duties. But if I'm importing my fertilizer to the country, I pay tax on it. If I import agricultural chemical to the country, I pay tax on it. But then those who are bringing and to create jobs in Ghana as well, I pay payee, I pay the million taxes I need to pay in the country. But when someone is important, the person, after the benefits of the other country on forex-related activities, because they are exporting and we are importing to our country, they also have the opportunity of even getting tax exemptions, which is also, quote unquote, money that should have come into the country. There is no more country, no more coming. So it might be a situation where there are higher taxes on imported products. So those taxes can be used in providing credits for local production, which can also create jobs. You would then appreciate the fact that there will be that level of level playing ground, and prices will not be so much different.
Look, always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Martin Tettey Nartey is agribusiness practitioner. Join us on the line. He does many things, but he's mainly also into rice production. So when he's talking about the sector, he knows it quite well. SM, they said people have at some point cultivated the taste for perfumed long grain rice. Thank you. They said now they have moved to basmati rice. So the Ghanaian farmer started small. Now they have moved to they now have to do rice that's the same quality as perfumed long grain rice. Now they also have to now move to compete with basmati rice. So you can just imagine. But you know, the interesting thing he said is that when you are buying Ghanaian rice, you're usually buying fresh rice.
Yes.
But when you're buying rice from outside, it's rice that has been there for a long time. Sometimes up to 10 years.
Yeah,
they've been able to store it for up to 10 years.
But and local rice board as a dinner. What did not to we want to local rice board?
Yes. No, but he explained, you know, a whole environment favors a foreigner than it does a local producer.
Yeah.